The email arrives on a Tuesday morning, sandwiched between a request from the World Economic Forum and a confidential briefing from the Department of Defense. Hey, Evie, Mom says you're coming to Thanksgiving this year. Good. We need to talk before then. I'm bringing someone important, my CEO, Richard Hale. This could be huge for my career. I need you to promise me you won't do anything weird. No talking about your research stuff, no correcting people, no wearing those blazers you think are professional, but just make you look like a substitute teacher. Just be normal. Blend in. Let me shine for once. Mark. I read it twice, then a third time. I'm sitting in my office at Stanford surrounded by books I've written and awards I've received and framed photographs of me shaking hands with people whose names appear in history books. The morning light streams through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the chaos of a mind that never stops working. Stacks of policy papers, 3 open laptops, a whiteboard covered in equations that would give most people a headache just looking at them. And my brother wants me to blend in. I laugh. It's not a happy sound. If you've ever been the quiet one in a loud family, you know what I mean. If you've ever achieved something extraordinary only to have it met with a shrug and a, "That's nice. But did you hear what your brother did?" You understand. If you've ever dimmed your own light so many times that people forgot you could shine at all, then you already know where this story's going. But let me take you back. Let me show you exactly how we got here. My name is Dr. Evelyn Carter. I'm 41 years old. I have a PhD in computer science from MIT, a secondary doctorate in philosophy from Oxford, and I've spent the last 15 years at Stanford, where I hold an endowed chair in AI ethics and human-machine interaction. My research has been cited over 40,000 times. I've testified before Congress 11 times. I've advised 3 presidential administrations, 2 American, 1 foreign. But that's just my day job. What my family doesn't know, what I've never told them, because they've never asked, is that for the past 8 years, I've sat on the boards of 7 Fortune 500 companies. My annual compensation from these positions exceeds $12 million. I own a penthouse in San Francisco, a cottage in the Cotswolds, and a small vineyard in Napa that I bought on a whim after a particularly exhausting merger negotiation. I've shaped policy that affects billions of people. I've made decisions that move markets. I've sat in rooms where the future of technology was decided by a handful of people, and I've been one of those people. But to my family, I'm just Evie, the quiet one, the bookworm, the daughter who never quite figured out what she wanted to do with her life. The phone call comes 3 days after the email. "Did you get Mark's message?" my mother asks without preamble. Whoa. No hello, no how are you, no acknowledgement that we haven't spoken in 6 weeks. I did. "Good. I need you to take this seriously, Evelyn. This is important for your brother. I'm reviewing a confidential proposal from the European Commission at the time, a document that will affect data privacy regulations for 450 million people. But I set it aside. I always set everything aside for my family. I understand it's important to him," I say carefully. "Do you?" Though my mother's voice carries that familiar edge of skepticism, the one she's used on me since I was 8 years old and tried to explain that I'd rather read than play outside. "Because you have a tendency to, to what? To make things about yourself, to try to seem impressive. It's off-putting, Evelyn. People don't want to hear about your little research projects at dinner." Little research projects. My little research projects have been featured in Nature, Science, and the New York Times. My little research projects have fundamentally altered how governments around the world approach artificial intelligence regulation. My little research projects have quite literally helped prevent 2 potential technological catastrophes that the public will never know about because the solutions were implemented before the problems became crises. But I don't say any of this. I never do. "I'll be on my best behavior," I say instead. "Good. And wear something nice. Not those academic things you insist on. Something feminine. Maybe that blue dress you wore to Cousin Linda's wedding." That blue dress is 7 years old and 2 sizes too small. But I don't mention this either. I'll figure something out. "And Evelyn, try to be supportive of your brother. He's working so hard to make something of himself. Not everyone can be as lucky as you, sitting around reading all day." The call ends before I can respond, which is probably for the best. That night, I sit on the balcony of my Francisco penthouse, a glass of wine from my own vineyard in hand, and I think about luck. Luck is what my family calls it when they can't explain my success. Luck is the word they use to diminish 15-hour workdays and missed holidays and the lonely years of doctoral research when I ate ramen for months because I'd rather buy books than groceries. Luck is how they describe a career built on sacrifice and brilliance and an absolute refusal to accept mediocrity. Mark, meanwhile, has had every advantage. Private tutors when his grades slipped, a car for his 16th birthday when I rode the bus until I was 23, family connections that got him interviews, references that glossed over his mistakes, second chances after every failure. He's 36 years old now, and he's a junior sales associate, junior, at 36, at a company where I sit on the board and help decide who gets promoted and who gets let go. I've never told him this. I've never told any of them, partly because they've never asked, partly because I stopped trying to impress them years ago, and partly, if I'm being honest with myself, which I try to be, because there's a small, petty part of me that enjoys knowing something they don't, that holds on to this secret like a child hoarding candy, savoring the sweetness of knowledge they don't deserve. Is that healthy? Probably not. But when you've spent your entire life being underestimated, being dismissed, being made to feel small so that others can feel big, well, you learn to find power where you can. The second email from Mark arrives a week later. Evie, just checking you got my first message. This is really important. Richard Hale is a big deal. Like Fortune magazine big deal. He's only been CEO for 2 years, but he's already turned the company around. Brilliant guy, self-made, the kind of person you'd never understand. I've been working on this for months. I mentioned to him that my family does this big Thanksgiving thing, and he seemed interested. I think he's looking for connections outside the office, real people, genuine relationships. And I can give him that, but I need you to cooperate. No long lectures, no correcting people, no making everything about your job. Just be normal. Be a sister. Support me for once. I'm telling you this because I know you. You think your work is so important, but Richard deals with real business decisions, not theoretical stuff. He wouldn't even know what you do. So just stay quiet and let me handle the conversation. This could change my life, Evie. Don't screw it up. Mark. I read the email in the back of a town car, on my way to SFO for a flight to Geneva. I'm scheduled to speak at a closed-door session of the UN's AI Governance Committee tomorrow. The speech I'll give will influence international policy for the next decade. But Mark thinks Richard Hale wouldn't know what I do. Here's what Mark doesn't know. I've known Richard Hale for 6 years. I was on the search committee that recommended his appointment as CEO. I've sat across from him in boardrooms, debating strategy and ethics and the future of the company. I've had dinner with him and his wife in their Manhattan penthouse. I've received handwritten thank you notes from him after I helped navigate a crisis that could have destroyed the company's reputation. Richard Hale doesn't just know what I do. He specifically sought my expertise when he took over as CEO. He's publicly credited me, though not by name because my board roles are largely confidential, with helping him understand the ethical implications of the company's AI initiatives. But Mark has worked at this company for 3 years and has apparently never connected the dots, never wondered why a Stanford professor might be relevant to a tech company's leadership, never bothered to look up his own sister's professional accomplishments. Then again, why would he? Our parents never did. I call Richard from the airport lounge. Evelyn? His voice is warm, genuinely pleased. I was hoping you'd reach out. I got your email about the Q4 ethics review. Brilliant suggestions, as always. I've already forwarded them to the executive team. Thank you, Richard, but that's not why I'm calling. Oh? I hesitate. This is where it gets complicated. I understand you've been invited to Thanksgiving dinner at the Carter residence. A pause, then a laugh. Surprised, delighted. Your family? That's your family? I had no idea. Mark mentioned his family's tradition, and I thought it might be nice to get out of the city for the holiday. Susan's visiting her mother, so I was going to be alone anyway. But I had no idea you were connected. My brother, I say carefully. Mark is my younger brother. Well, isn't that something? I'll admit the connection never occurred to me. He's never mentioned having a sister. Of course he hasn't. Why would he mention someone he's spent his whole life trying to pretend doesn't exist? Richard, I need to tell you something. My family, they don't know about my board positions, any of them. They think I'm just a professor. Another pause, longer this time. They don't know. They've never asked. Evelyn. His voice has shifted, become something softer, more concerned. Are you telling me that your own family doesn't know about your career? Your influence? Your, and forgive me for being blunt, your rather extraordinary success? That's exactly what I'm telling you. But why? How do I explain a lifetime of dismissal? How do I compress decades of being overlooked, undervalued, actively discouraged from speaking about my accomplishments into a single phone call? It's complicated, I finally say, but the short version is that they've never been interested. They see me as the quiet daughter who reads too much and doesn't have a real job. My brother has spent years positioning himself as the successful one, the ambitious one, the one with potential, and they've believed him. They've always believed him. I see. Richard's voice is tight now, controlled in a way I recognize from difficult board meetings. And you're calling to warn me? To ask me to play along? No. The word comes out stronger than I intended. No, I'm not asking you to pretend. I wanted you to know the situation. Before you walk into it. Whatever happens at that dinner, I don't want you to be caught off guard. Evelyn. He says my name like a statement, like a decision. I've known you for 6 years. I've watched you command rooms full of people twice your age. I've seen you stand up to senators, challenge industry titans, reshape the conversation about technology and humanity. The idea that your own family doesn't know who you are, doesn't see who you are, is frankly astonishing to me. Well, I stare out the window at planes taxiing on the runway. Families are complicated. They are, but some complications are worth addressing. A beat. I won't pretend to be someone I'm not, Evelyn. And I won't pretend not to know you, but I'll follow your lead. Whatever you want this dinner to be, I'll support it. Thank you, Richard. Thank me after. Something tells me this Thanksgiving is going to be memorable. He has no idea how right he is. The weeks before Thanksgiving pass in a blur of contradictions. In my professional life, I'm unstoppable. I finalize a landmark agreement on AI safety protocols with 3 major tech companies. I deliver a keynote at the Global Ethics Forum that receives a standing ovation. I negotiate a compromise between 2 warring factions on the NVIDIA board that saves a $30 billion deal. In my family life, I receive a series of increasingly condescending messages about what to wear, how to behave, and why I should consider this dinner practice for interacting with successful people. Evie, wear something with color. Black makes you look like a funeral director. Evie, don't bring any of your academic books. Nobody wants to hear about philosophy. Evie, remember to smile. You always look so serious. It makes people uncomfortable. Each message is a small cut. Individually, they're nothing. Minor annoyances, easily dismissed. But collectively, over years, over decades, they've left scars. And scars, as I've learned, are just receipts. Evidence of wounds that never fully healed. 2 weeks before Thanksgiving, I receive an unexpected call. Dr. Carter, this is Patricia Okonkwo from the MacArthur Foundation. I'm calling to inform you that you've been selected as a 2024 MacArthur Fellow. I sit down. I actually have to sit down. The announcement will be made public next month, Patricia continues, but we like to notify our fellows in advance. Congratulations, Dr. Carter. Your work on AI ethics and human-machine interaction has been truly transformative. The selection committee was particularly impressed by your ability to bridge academic research and real-world policy implementation, a MacArthur Fellowship, the Genius Grant, $800,000, unrestricted, given to individuals who have shown extraordinary creativity and the promise of continued impact. I've spent my career avoiding this kind of recognition, not because I don't deserve it, I know I do, but because every accolade feels hollow when the people who should be proudest of you don't even know what you do. Thank you, I managed to say. I'm honored. The official announcement will be December 10th. We'll need you in Chicago for the press conference. Will that work with your schedule? I think about Thanksgiving, about my family, about the dinner that's coming. Yes, I say. That will work perfectly. I don't tell anyone in my family about the MacArthur. Of course I don't. Why would I? 3 years ago, I won the ACM AM Turing Award and the Nobel Prize of Computing. I mentioned it casually at Christmas dinner, and my mother asked if it came with a nice certificate to hang in my office. It comes with $1 million, I said. Well, that's nice, she replied, already turning back to Mark. Now, Mark, tell us more about your sales competition. Did you win? He'd come in third out of 4, but the conversation about his near victory lasted 30 minutes. That was the last time I tried to share my professional achievements with my family. The week before Thanksgiving, Mark calls me directly. This is unusual. He typically communicates through emails or occasionally through our mother as an intermediary. Evie, we need to talk. About? About Thursday. About Richard. About everything. I'm in my Stanford office, grading papers from my graduate seminar on algorithmic accountability. Each paper is thoughtful, rigorous, the work of minds I've helped shape. But I set them aside. I always set them aside. I'm listening. Okay, look. Mark's voice has that particular edge it gets when he's nervous, pitched slightly higher, words coming faster than normal. I know I've been intense about this, but you don't understand what this means to me. Richard Hale is a visionary. He's transformed the company, and if I can connect with him outside the office, show him that I'm more than just another sales guy. Mark, you've been a sales associate for 3 years, at the same level. Silence. Then, what's that supposed to mean? It means that impressing the CEO at a family dinner isn't going to advance your career. Performance advances careers. Results. Actual work. Oh, that's rich. Coming from you. His voice turns bitter. You've never had to fight for anything in your life, Evie. You just sit in your ivory tower, reading books and writing papers that no one cares about. You don't know what it's like in the real world. The real world. I think about the real world I navigate daily. The boardrooms and policy meetings, the billion-dollar decisions and international negotiations. I think about the real world, where my words have shaped laws and my insights have prevented crises. But I don't say any of this. What would be the point? I'll be on my best behavior, I say instead. The same promise I've been making for 35 years. Good. And Evie, don't wear that old blue dress. I saw Mom's text. Just get something new. Something that doesn't make you look like you shop at thrift stores. I'm wearing a blazer that costs more than his monthly salary, but he doesn't know that. He's never bothered to look closely enough to notice. I'll take care of it. Thanks. And remember, stay quiet, smile, and let me handle Richard. This is my chance to shine. Don't take that away from me. He hangs up before I can respond, which again is probably for the best. That night, I stand in my walk-in closet, the one in my penthouse, the one that's larger than the apartment I shared with 2 roommates during graduate school, and I consider my options. I own clothes for every occasion, suits for congressional testimony, gowns for diplomatic functions, casual elegance for board retreats, and yes, blazers. Lots of blazers, beautifully tailored, impeccably chosen, and worth more than Mark makes in a year. What do you wear to a dinner that will change everything? In the end, I choose carefully. A soft cashmere sweater in deep burgundy, expensive but not ostentatious, well-fitted slacks in charcoal, simple pearl earrings that were a gift from Christine Lagarde after a particularly productive meeting at the ECB, my grandmother's watch, the only valuable thing she owned, which she left to me because I was the only one who asked about her stories. I look professional without being aggressive, elegant without being showy. Exactly like the professor my family expects me to be. But beneath the surface, I'm something else entirely. And soon, they'll know it too. Thanksgiving morning dawns gray and cold. The kind of November day that makes you want to stay in bed with a good book and a cup of tea. Instead, I'm up at 5 going over notes for a December board meeting. Some habits die hard. The drive from San Francisco to my parents' house in Sacramento takes 2 hours. I could have hired a car, usually do, but today I drive myself. The solitude helps me think. The family home hasn't changed much since I was a child. It's a comfortable suburban house in a comfortable suburban neighborhood, the kind of place where nothing ever happens and everyone knows everyone else's business, or thinks they do. My mother is already in the kitchen when I arrive, orchestrating the chaos of Thanksgiving preparation like a general commanding troops. "You're early," she says, not looking up from the turkey she's basting. "I wanted to help." "That's nice, dear. You can set the table. The good china is in the cabinet." I know where the good china is. I set this table every Thanksgiving for 18 years before I left for college. But I don't mention this. Instead, I move through the familiar motions: plates, glasses, silverware, napkins folded just so. The physical work is soothing in its mundanity. "Mark should be here soon," my mother continues, "with Richard. I'm so excited to meet him. Mark says he's very impressive." I'm sure he is. "You know, your brother has really come into his own these past few years, finding his path, making connections. That's what success is really about, Evelyn. Relationships, not just books and research and whatnot." "I'm sure you're right." She pauses, finally looking at me. "You know, you could learn something from your brother. He's so good with people. Always has been. You've always been so serious, so focused on your little projects." Little projects. There it is again. The word that reduces decades of work to something trivial, something unimportant, something that couldn't possibly compare to Mark's ability to make small talk at company picnics. "I'll try to learn from his example," I say. My mother nods, satisfied. She's never been good at detecting sarcasm. My father emerges from his study around noon, looking rumpled and distracted as always. He's a retired engineer, a man who spent 40 years designing bridges and highways and never quite understood why his daughter chose soft sciences over real ones. "Evelyn," he says, by way of greeting. "Didn't hear you come in." "I've been here for 3 hours." "Have you? Well," he glances around the dining room, taking in the carefully set table. "Looks nice. Your mother did a good job." I don't correct him. I never do. "So," he says, settling into his chair with a newspaper that's 2 days old. "Mark's bringing his boss, I hear. Big shot CEO. Should be interesting." "Hmm. You know, I always said Mark would do well in business. He's got that charisma, that spark. People respond to him. Not like—" He stops himself, but not quickly enough. "Not like me." "I didn't say that." "You didn't have to." My father shifts uncomfortably. "Now, Evelyn, don't be sensitive. I just meant that you and Mark have different strengths. His are more visible, more obvious. That's all." "Visible?" I repeat. "Obvious. You know what I mean. He's charming, you're studious. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with being studious. But there's also nothing impressive about it, in my father's eyes. Nothing worth celebrating. Nothing that compares to the magnetic pull of Mark's easy smile and glib conversation. I need to check on the vegetables," I say, and escape to the kitchen. My sister arrives at 2. Elizabeth is the middle child, the one who chose neither academic excellence nor ambitious mediocrity, but rather a quiet life in a quiet town with a quiet husband and 2 quiet children. She works part-time as a dental hygienist. She's perfectly content. I've never been quite sure how to talk to Evie. She hugs me with genuine warmth. "It's been too long." 6 months, I agree. Maybe more. "You work too hard. You need to take more breaks. Come visit us sometime. The kids would love to see their aunt." I've met her children 4 times. They barely know my name. But Elizabeth's offer is sincere, and I appreciate the gesture. "Maybe after the holidays," I say. "Good. Now tell me, what's new with you?" "Still teaching?" "Still teaching." "And the research stuff? Still doing that too?" "Still doing that too." "That's nice. You always were the smart one." She says it without resentment, without the edge that colors my mother's comments. To Elizabeth, my intelligence is simply a fact, like my height or my hair color. Neither good nor bad, just true. "Thanks, Liz." I mean it. I could never do what you do, all that reading and writing and thinking. It would drive me crazy. But I'm glad someone in the family is doing something, you know, important. It's the closest anyone in my family has come to acknowledging my work in years. I find myself unexpectedly moved. Thank you, I say again, and I mean it. Mark arrives at 3:30. I hear his car in the driveway, a BMW that he can't really afford, financed to the hilt, a symbol of the success he's convinced himself he's achieved. He comes in through the front door, all energy and enthusiasm, filling the space with his presence the way he always has. Family, he announces, spreading his arms wide. The guest of honor will be here in 20 minutes. Everyone look sharp. He's dressed in what I recognize as his impressive outfit: tailored pants, a shirt that's just a shade too bright to be tasteful, a watch that's a knockoff of a watch that's a knockoff of something actually expensive. He looks like what he is, someone trying very hard to look like something he's not. Mark, honey. My mother rushes to embrace him. You look wonderful. So professional. Thanks, Mom. I wanted it to make a good impression. Richard's really important, one of the most powerful men in tech. And he's coming to our dinner. I still can't believe it. Mark grins, basking in the attention. Well, when you've got connections like mine, things just happen. I say nothing. I stand by the fireplace, watching my family orbit around my brother like planets around a sun. And I say nothing. Mark notices me, eventually. Evie, you came. I said I would. You look. He studies me, clearly trying to find something to criticize. Fine. You look fine. Thank you. Just remember what we talked about, okay? Stay quiet. Let me handle Richard. Don't embarrass me. I wouldn't dream of it. He nods, satisfied that he's successfully managed the situation. Then he turns back to our mother, launching into an elaborate story about a sales meeting that, as far as I can tell, accomplished absolutely nothing but somehow proves his exceptional value to the company. I watch. I listen. I wait. 20 minutes until Richard Hale arrives. 20 minutes until everything changes. The doorbell rings at precisely 4 o'clock. Richard was always punctual. He's here. Mark practically vibrates with excitement. Everyone look natural. Act normal. Remember, this is just a casual family dinner. No big deal. He's been saying variations of no big deal for the past 15 minutes, each repetition undermining the assertion more thoroughly than the last. My mother has changed her outfit twice. My father has put on a tie, then removed it, then put it on again. Even Elizabeth seems slightly on edge, though she's handling it better than the rest. Only I remain calm. But then, I'm the only one who knows what's coming. Mark opens the door with a flourish. Richard! Welcome. Come in, come in. Richard Hale steps into our family home, and for a moment time seems to suspend itself. He's wearing exactly what I'd expect: casual elegance, a soft gray sweater over a collared shirt, expensive but understated shoes. His silver hair is perfectly styled. His bearing is confident without being arrogant. He looks like what he is, a man accustomed to power, comfortable in any setting. Mark, he says warmly, shaking my brother's hand. Thank you for the invitation. It's nice to get out of the city for the holiday. Of course, of course. Let me introduce you to everyone. Mark is almost bouncing on his heels. This is my mother, Karen, and my father, Robert, and my sister, Elizabeth, and... He stops. He stops because Richard has frozen. His eyes have locked onto me, standing by the fireplace, and his face has transformed into an expression of genuine, delighted surprise. Evelyn? The name falls into the room like a stone into still water, sending ripples in every direction. Mark's smile falters. You know my sister? But Richard isn't looking at Mark anymore. He's crossing the room toward me, his hand extended, his smile broadening with every step. Dr. Carter, he says, taking my hand in both of his. What an unexpected pleasure. I had no idea when Mark invited me that I'd be spending Thanksgiving with one of my most trusted advisors. The silence that follows is the loudest sound I've ever heard. My mother is the first to find her voice. Advisor? Evelyn, what is he talking about? But Richard is still speaking, still holding my hand, still looking at me with the respect and admiration that my family has never once shown me. I've been meaning to thank you for your notes on the Q4 ethics review. Your suggestions about the facial recognition rollback were invaluable. The board meeting next month would have been a disaster without your input. I'm glad I could help, I say calmly. Though I should mention, my family isn't aware of my board positions. Board positions? My father's voice is strange, strangled. What board positions? Richard finally turns, finally registers the confusion and shock on the faces around him. To his credit, he recovers quickly, his expression shifting to one of diplomatic neutrality. I apologize, he says. I assumed, that is, I didn't realize this was confidential. It's not confidential, I say. It's just never come up. Never come up? Mark's voice is too high, too loud. What the hell is going on, Evie? How do you know Richard? And here it is, the moment I've imagined 1,000 times, the moment of truth. Richard and I have known each other for 6 years, I say. My voice is calm, steady, the same voice I use in congressional testimony and board meetings and negotiations that affect millions of lives. I was on the search committee that recommended his appointment as CEO. I currently sit on his company's board of directors, the same company you work for, Mark, as well as 6 other Fortune 500 companies. Silence. Absolute, crushing silence. My compensation from these positions exceeds $12 million annually. I also receive my full salary as an endowed professor at Stanford, plus consulting fees from various government agencies and international organizations. 2 weeks ago, I was informed that I've been selected as a MacArthur Fellow, what's commonly known as the Genius Grant. The announcement will be made public next month. I pause, letting the words settle. But you're right, Mom. I should wear more color. Black does wash me out. The eruption happens in stages. First, there's the denial. My mother literally laughs, a high, nervous sound that trails off into nothing when she realizes no one is joining her. That's ridiculous, she says. Evelyn, stop making things up. This isn't funny. I'm not making things up, Mom. But you're just a professor. You teach classes. You read books. I also advise Fortune 500 companies on ethics and strategy. I help shape policy at the highest levels of government and industry. I've been doing this for nearly a decade. But why? Didn't you tell us? The question hangs in the air, and for the first time, I let myself feel the full weight of my answer. Because you never asked. Richard, to his eternal credit, handles the situation with grace. Perhaps we should all sit down, he suggests. Have some of that wonderful turkey I've been smelling, and I'd be happy to clarify things. But Mark isn't interested in sitting down. Mark is staring at me like he's never seen me before, which, in a sense, he hasn't. You're on the board, he says slowly. Of my company. Yes. For how long? 5 years for the current board. I was on the advisory committee for 3 years before that. And you never told me? Mark? I meet his eyes directly. In 3 years of working at that company, you've never once mentioned having a sister. Richard just told me that himself. You've actively avoided any connection between us. Why would I volunteer information that you've made clear you don't want? That's different, is it? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've spent your entire adult life pretending I don't exist, telling people you're an only child, making sure no one knows you have a sister who might, what was the word you used? Embarrass you. His face has gone red. Not from anger, I realize. From shame. I was trying to build my own identity, he says, but the words come out weak, defensive. Your own identity? Mark, you've built your entire career on connections and charm and the assumption that no one will look too closely at your actual performance. You're a junior sales associate at 36 years old, in a company where I help decide who gets promoted. Do you have any idea how many conversations I've sat through about your division, about your metrics, about whether certain underperforming employees should be retained or let go? Evelyn. Richard's voice is gentle, cautionary. Perhaps this isn't. No, Richard, this is exactly the time. I turn back to Mark. I have never, not once, used my position to influence your career, positively or negatively. I've recused myself from every conversation that might have affected you. I've done this because I wanted you to succeed or fail on your own merits. But I've watched, Mark. I've seen the reports. I know exactly how you compare to your peers. And his voice is barely a whisper. And you're average. You're precisely average. Not failing, but not excelling either. Coasting on charm and connections. Doing just enough to avoid notice. Never pushing yourself to actually be good at what you do. The words land like blows. I watch him absorb them. Watch the defenses crumble. But I thought, you thought success was about impressing people at dinner parties, about having the right watch and the right car and the right stories to tell. You thought if you just smiled enough, talked enough, networked enough, the actual work wouldn't matter. Isn't that how it works? Isn't that how you got where you are? And now I do laugh, a sharp, bitter sound that surprises even me. Mark, I spent 10 years in academia before anyone outside my field knew my name. I published paper after paper, worked 18-hour days, sacrificed relationships and holidays and any semblance of a normal life. I earned every single position I hold through merit, through expertise, through being so undeniably good at what I do that people had no choice but to notice. But the boards, the connections came after the work, not before. Richard didn't invite me onto his board because I was charming at a party. He invited me because my research had literally reshaped how his industry thinks about ethics and responsibility, because my expertise was valuable, because I brought something to the table that no one else could provide. Richard nods, confirming. Evelyn's reputation precedes her everywhere. When I took over as CEO, she was the first person I wanted in my corner. Her insights have prevented crises, saved billions of dollars, and genuinely made the company better. She's one of the most respected voices in her field, in any field. Mark looks between us, his worldview crumbling in real time. I didn't know, he says finally. You never asked, I say. None of you ever asked. The turkey goes cold while the truth comes out. We move to the living room, some instinct toward normalcy, toward the rituals that usually govern family gatherings. But there's nothing normal about this Thanksgiving. Nothing normal about the way my family looks at me now, as if seeing me for the first time. Richard sits in my father's armchair, looking faintly amused despite the chaos. He's witnessed plenty of boardroom drama. I suppose this is just another variety. I have to say, he comments mildly, this is the most interesting Thanksgiving I've ever attended. I'm so sorry, my mother says, for perhaps the 5th time. She keeps saying it, as if the words alone can undo decades. I'm so sorry, Richard. This is so embarrassing. Our family doesn't usually... Evelyn doesn't usually... Usually what? I ask. Usually speak? Usually exist? Usually fail to shrink myself small enough for everyone's comfort? That's not fair, Evelyn. Isn't it? Mom, you sent me 4 texts this week about what to wear. You told me to dress normally and to not make things about myself. You told me to stay quiet and let Mark shine. You've been telling me some version of that my entire life. She flinches, but doesn't deny it. Do you know what I was doing when I got Mark's first email? I continue. I was reviewing a proposal from the European Commission about AI governance, regulations that will affect 450 million people. Before that, I was on the phone with the Department of Defense about a security briefing. Before that, I was negotiating a $30 billion merger. But sure, tell me more about how I should wear the blue dress from Cousin Linda's wedding. We didn't know, my father says. His voice is hoarse, uncertain. How could we have known if you didn't tell us? How could you have known? Dad, I won the Turing Award 3 years ago, the computing equivalent of the Nobel Prize. It came with $1 million. I mentioned it at Christmas dinner, and Mom asked if it was a nice certificate. The memory hits them both. I can see it in their faces. The dismissal, the immediate pivot to Mark's minor sales achievement. I thought... My mother's voice trails off. You thought what? That I was exaggerating? That I made it up? That your quiet daughter who reads too much couldn't possibly have accomplished something worth celebrating? We always celebrated Mark's successes, my father says, then winces as the words hit air. I mean, we celebrated both of you equally. No, Robert. Richard's voice cuts in, surprisingly firm. Let me offer an outside perspective, if I may. We all turn to him. I've known Evelyn for 6 years. In that time, I've watched her command rooms full of world leaders. I've seen her stand up to senators, challenge billionaires, reshape entire industries through the force of her intellect and integrity. She's one of the most impressive people I've ever met. And I say that as someone who meets impressive people for a living. He pauses, letting that sink in. But whenever I've asked about her family, whenever the subject has come up in casual conversation, she changes the subject, deflects, minimizes. I always found it curious. Now I understand why. What are you saying? My mother asks. I'm saying that your daughter has spent years dimming her own light to avoid outshining her brother. She's hidden her success, downplayed her achievements, made herself small so that Mark could feel big. And you've let her. You've encouraged it. You've actively participated in it. The accusation lands like a physical blow. My mother actually recoils. That's not. We didn't. You did, I say quietly. You didn't mean to. I believe that. But you did. Every time you asked Mark about his career and didn't ask me about mine, every time you celebrated his minor achievements and ignored my major ones, every time you told me to dress differently, act differently, be different, so that I wouldn't make Mark feel inadequate. We were trying to protect him, my father says. He's always been more sensitive. Sensitive to what? To the fact that his sister succeeded? To the possibility that someone in this family might be more accomplished than him? That's not sensitivity, Dad. That's enabling insecurity. Evie, Elizabeth's voice, quiet and steady. Can I say something? We all turned to her. In the chaos, I'd almost forgotten she was there. I never knew the details, she says carefully, about the boards, the money, the genius grant, but I always knew you were special. You were always the smartest person in every room. You read books the rest of us couldn't even understand. You asked questions that made adults uncomfortable. She pauses, gathering her thoughts. I think Mom and Dad were scared of that, and I think Mark was jealous. Not because you had something he wanted, but because you were something he couldn't compete with. So they all just decided not to see it, to pretend you were just like the rest of us. But I'm not, I say. I was never just like the rest of you, and pretending otherwise, making me pretend otherwise, didn't protect anyone. It just hurt me. My mother has started crying, silent tears that she doesn't bother to wipe away. We failed you, she says. It's not a question. Yes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry, Evelyn. I don't know how to fix this. You can't fix it, Mom. You can't go back and change the last 40 years, but you can change now. You can start asking about my life. You can start seeing me as I actually am. You can stop treating Mark's average performance as exceptional and my exceptional performance as average. And what about me? Mark's voice is rough. He's been silent through most of this, absorbing, processing. What am I supposed to do with all this? I look at my brother, really look at him, maybe for the first time in years, past the polished exterior, past the careful self-presentation, past the persona he's constructed to hide his insecurities. You grow up, Mark. You stop relying on charm and connections and start actually being good at your job. You earn your promotions instead of schmoozing for them. You develop real expertise in something, anything, and build a career on substance instead of smoke. Is that even possible? I'm 36. Most people have figured themselves out by now. Most people never figure themselves out. That's not the point. The point is to keep trying, to get better, to stop comparing yourself to me and start comparing yourself to who you were yesterday. He nods slowly, something shifting behind his eyes. I was jealous, he admits. I've always been jealous. When we were kids, you were always so focused, so sure of yourself. I felt like I was constantly running to catch up and never getting any closer. So, you decided to pretend I didn't exist? I told myself you weren't important, that what you did wasn't real success, just academic stuff that didn't matter in the real world, It was easier than admitting that you were better than me. I'm not better than you, Mark. I'm different than you. We have different skills, different interests, different paths, but you've spent so long trying to diminish mine that you never figured out how to develop yours. Can I still figure it out, I mean? It's such a vulnerable question, such a genuine moment of honesty, that I find myself softening despite everything. Yes, I say, but you have to actually want it. Not because it'll impress people at dinner parties, not because it'll help you keep up with me, but because you want to be genuinely good at something, to contribute something real. I think I want that, he says slowly. I think I've always wanted that, underneath everything else. Then that's where you start. The conversation continues through the evening, through the reheated turkey, and the too cold mashed potatoes, and the pie that no one really has an appetite for. We talk about things we've never talked about before: old wounds, missed opportunities, the thousand small choices that led us to this moment. My mother tells me about her own childhood, about a brilliant aunt who was constantly overshadowed by her less capable brothers. I didn't realize I was doing the same thing, she says. I thought I was just being fair, giving Mark the support he needed. Fairness isn't the same as equity, I tell her. Giving equal attention to unequal achievements isn't fair. It's distortion. It tells one person that mediocrity is enough, and the other that excellence doesn't matter. I know that now. I wish I'd known it sooner. My father is more reserved, but eventually he shares his own regrets. I never understood what you did, he admits. Engineering, I understood. Bridges, highways, physical things. But ethics, philosophy, AI, it seems so abstract, impractical. Dad, my abstract work has literally prevented technological crises. I've helped write regulations that protect people's privacy and safety. I've shaped how machines interact with humans in ways that affect billions of lives. I'm beginning to see that. Are you? Or are you just saying what you think I want to hear? He's quiet for a long moment. Then, I don't know. Maybe both. I want to understand, Evelyn. I want to be proud of you in ways I should have been proud all along, but I'm not sure I know how. You could start by reading something I've written. Would you recommend something? It's such a simple request, such a small thing, but it's more than he's ever offered before. I'll send you my last book and a few articles that explain what I do in more accessible terms. I'd like that. Elizabeth pulls me aside as the evening winds down. I know I'm not the dramatic one in this family, she says. I'm not the brilliant one or the ambitious one. I'm just the middle one, the normal one. There's nothing wrong with being normal, Liz. I know, and I'm happy with my life, genuinely happy. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. I've always been proud of you. Even when I didn't understand what you were doing, I knew it was important. Her words are a balm on wounds I didn't know I still had. Thank you, I say. That means more than you know. And I'm sorry I didn't say it more often. I think I assumed you didn't need to hear it. You always seem so confident, so self-sufficient. I didn't realize you were waiting for the rest of us to catch up. I wasn't waiting. I'd given up. There's a difference. Well, we're here now. Late, but here. Does that count for anything? I think about the question. Really think about it. It counts for something, I finally say. Not everything, but something. The hardest conversation is with Mark. Everyone else has gone to bed or is pretending to. Richard left hours ago, after a surprisingly warm handshake and Anna murmured, "Well handled, Dr. Carter." Now it's just Mark and me, sitting on the back porch, watching the last stars fade as dawn approaches. I need to tell you something, he says, and I need you to not interrupt until I'm finished. Okay? He takes a deep breath. My whole life, I've felt like I was running a race I could never win. You were always there, ahead of me, making it look effortless. Even when you weren't trying, you were succeeding. And I was struggling, working twice as hard for half the results. I stay silent, as promised. When I went to college, I told myself I'd finally have a chance to be the best at something. But you were already at MIT, already publishing, already being called a prodigy. So I decided to compete in a different arena: social skills, networking, the soft stuff that you never seem to care about. He laughs bitterly. Turns out I wasn't even good at that. I was just good at pretending, good at making people think I was competent, good at taking credit for other people's work, good at schmoozing my way into rooms I didn't deserve to be in. Mark, not yet. Please. I nod. When I got the job at Richard's company, I thought it was finally my chance, my opportunity to prove I could succeed without being compared to you. So I made sure no one knew I had a sister, made sure no one could connect us, made sure that whatever I achieved would be mine alone. And how's that working out for you? It's not. 3 years, and I'm still a junior associate. 3 years, and my biggest career move is inviting the CEO to Thanksgiving dinner. He shakes his head. I was so focused on avoiding your shadow that I forgot to actually build anything of my own. The admission hangs in the cold morning air. I've been a terrible brother, he continues. I've resented you for things that weren't your fault. I have minimized your accomplishments. I have actively tried to diminish you in other people's eyes because I couldn't handle how bright you were. And I'm sorry. I'm genuinely, completely sorry. Thank you for saying that. But I don't expect you to forgive me. Not right away. Maybe not ever. I needed you to know that I see it now. All of it. I think about forgiveness, about what it means, what it costs, what it offers. Forgiveness isn't something I can give you right now, I finally say. Not because I'm holding a grudge, but because I need to see change. I need to see who you become when you're not trying to compete with me. How do I do that? You start by being honest with yourself, with the people you work with everyone. You stop trying to impress people and start trying to actually contribute. You ask for help when you need it. You admit when you don't know something. That sounds terrifying. It is. It's also the only path to genuine success. Everything else is just smoke and mirrors. He nods slowly, processing. One more thing, I say. You need to tell Richard the truth about why you invited him, about what you were hoping to gain, about the fact that you've been hiding your connection to me. He'll fire me. Maybe. Or maybe he'll respect you for owning up to it. Richard values honesty above almost everything else. That's why he's trusted me for so long. And if I don't, if I just go back to pretending everything's normal, then I'll tell him myself. I'm done protecting you from the consequences of your choices, Mark. That's not love. That's enabling. He flinches, but nods. Okay, I'll tell him. Tomorrow or I guess later today. Good. We sit in silence as the sun rises over the suburban rooftops, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. It's beautiful, in the way that endings and beginnings often are. Evie, Mark says finally. Yeah? I'm proud of you. I always have been. Even when I pretended otherwise. You're extraordinary, and I'm glad someone finally made this family see it. The words land somewhere deep, in places I'd thought long scarred over. Thank you, Mark. That means something. Something, but not everything. Something is enough for now. The weeks following Thanksgiving are a study in gradual transformation. I return to my life, the board meetings and policy consultations, the lectures and research projects, the quiet satisfaction of doing work that matters. But something has shifted. The weight I've carried for decades, the constant low-level exhaustion of being unseen, has begun to lift. My family, for their part, makes an effort. It's awkward at first, tentative, like learning a new language in middle age, but it's genuine, and that counts for something. My mother calls every Sunday, not to talk about Mark, but to ask about my work. She doesn't always understand my answers, but she's learning. She's trying. I've been reading your articles, she tells me one week. Well, trying to read them. They're quite technical. They're not really meant for general audiences. I know, but I want to understand, even if it takes me years. My father sends me an email, his first ever, about the book I recommended. Dear Evelyn, I finished your book. It took me 3 weeks, and I had to look up every fifth word, but I finished it. I don't pretend to understand everything, but I understand enough to know that you've done something important, something that matters. I'm sorry I didn't see it before. I'm sorry I wasn't the father you deserved. I can't change the past, but I hope I can do better in the future. Your father, Robert. It's not poetry, but it's more than he's ever given me before. Elizabeth visits me in San Francisco in early December. She brings her kids, who are awestruck by my penthouse and utterly baffled by my work. Aunt Evie, what do you actually do? Her daughter asks. I help make sure that computers and robots treat people fairly. Like in the movies? Like the robots that try to take over the world? I laugh. A little like that. Mostly I work with companies and governments to make sure we're building technology that helps people instead of hurting them. That sounds really important. It is. Elizabeth watches our exchange with a soft smile. She's going to remember this, she says later, when the kids are asleep. She's going to remember having an aunt who did something that mattered. That's a gift, you know, a model for what's possible. I never thought of it that way. Of course you didn't. You've spent so long being invisible that you forgot how inspiring you are. But you are, Evie. You really, really are. Mark follows through on his promise to Richard. I hear about it secondhand through the professional grapevine that connects my various board positions. The story that circulates is this. A junior sales associate requested a meeting with the CEO to confess that he'd been hiding his connection to a board member, that he'd invited the CEO to dinner for career advancement rather than genuine connection, and that he was committed to earning his position through merit rather than manipulation. Richard, reportedly, was impressed. Not enough to promote him. That would have to be earned, but enough to offer him a second chance, a clean slate, the opportunity to prove himself based on actual performance. Mark calls me a week later, sounding different, lighter somehow, less desperate. I did it, he says. I told Richard everything, about you, about me, about all of it. And he didn't fire me. He said he appreciated my honesty. He also said that if I'd tried to hide it, if it had come out later, that would have been the end. But since I came forward myself, he was willing to give me another chance. I'm glad, Mark. Me too. I'm going to make it count, Evie. I don't know if I'll ever be as successful as you. Probably not, honestly, but I'm going to try to be good at something. Really good. Not just good enough to fool people. That's all I ever wanted for you. I know. I just wish I'd figured it out sooner. We all wish we'd figured things out sooner. The important thing is figuring them out at all. The MacArthur announcement comes in early December, as promised. I'm in Chicago for the press conference, surrounded by fellow fellows. A marine biologist, a community organizer, a jazz composer, a mathematician. All of us chosen for extraordinary creativity and the promise of continued impact. All of us about to have our lives changed by a single announcement. The press conference event is surreal. Cameras, microphones, reporters shouting questions. My face appears on screens around the world. Dr. Evelyn Carter, AI ethics pioneer, named MacArthur Fellow. My phone explodes with messages. Colleagues, collaborators, former students, people I haven't talked to in years. Everyone wants to congratulate me, to celebrate, to share in the moment. And for the first time, my family is among them. My mother sends a text that's mostly exclamation points and heart emojis. My father sends a more measured message. Watch the press conference, very proud, well deserved. Elizabeth calls me crying happy tears. Even Mark reaches out. Saw the news. Holy shit, Evie, you're a genius, like an actual certified genius. Congratulations. It's strange, being seen. After so many years of invisibility, the sudden attention feels almost overwhelming. But underneath the strangeness, there's something else. Something that feels suspiciously like peace. I spend Christmas with my family for the first time in 6 years. Not because I've forgiven everything. That's still a work in progress. But because I'm curious. Curious about who they're becoming. Curious about who I'm becoming in relation to them. The house is decorated in the same way it's always been. Too many ornaments on the tree, tinsel everywhere, the smell of gingerbread and pine. But the atmosphere is different, lighter, more honest. My mother gives me a framed copy of the MacArthur announcement, along with a handwritten note. I should have been framing your accomplishments for years. Better late than never. My father gives me a book, a first edition of Ada Lovelace's notes on the analytical engine. I found it at an antique shop, he explains. The dealer said it was important. Something to do with computers? I thought you might like it. I do like it. Very much. Elizabeth gives me a drawing from her daughter, a stick figure in a cape, with the words Super Aunt Evie scrawled above it in purple crayon. She wanted you to know you're her hero, Elizabeth explains. And Mark? Mark gives me something unexpected, an apology letter. Handwritten, 6 pages long, detailing every moment he can remember when he diminished me, dismissed me, or pretended I didn't exist. I know words aren't enough, he writes at the end, but I wanted you to have a record, evidence that I see it now. All of it. Evidence, receipts, documentation of wounds that might finally be healing. Thank you, I tell him. This means more than you know. I mean every word. I know you do. The real test comes in January. I have been invited to speak at the World Economic Forum in Davos. Not unusual for me, but this year is different. This year my family has asked if they can come. It's a big deal, right? My mother asks. The Davos thing. It's one of the biggest stages in the world for what I do. Yes. Then I want to be there. I want to see you in your element. I want to understand who you are. When you're not shrinking yourself for our benefit. It's a remarkably self-aware thing to say, and I find myself agreeing before I fully process the implications. My family arrives in Switzerland looking overwhelmed and out of place. They're not accustomed to private jets and luxury hotels, to security details and diplomatic protocols. They hover at the edges of things, watching, trying to understand. There are so many important people here, my mother whispers, as we navigate the main conference hall. Presidents, CEOs, celebrities. They're just people, Mom. Impressive people, but people nonetheless. And you know them? All of them? I look around the room, recognizing face after face. The head of the IMF, with whom I worked on digital currency regulations. The CEO of a major tech company whose board I sit on. The Prime Minister of a Nordic country who sought my advice on AI governance. A Nobel laureate with whom I've co-authored papers. Yes, I say simply. I know most of them. My mother stares at me like she's never seen me before, which in a way she hasn't. The speech is scheduled for the main stage, the largest auditorium in the conference center. Standing room only, broadcast live to millions of viewers around the world. My family is seated in the front row. Richard arranged it and the favor. They look terrified and proud in equal measure. I take the stage, and the room falls silent. Good afternoon, I begin. I want to talk to you today about visibility, about the people we see, the people we overlook, and the cost of our blind spots. I tell them about my research, about the hidden biases in AI systems that perpetuate discrimination against the invisible. I tell them about my work on ethical technology, about the importance of centering human dignity in our designs. I tell them about the future we're building and who gets left out of it. And then, near the end, I tell them something personal. I spent most of my life being invisible, not because I wasn't successful. I was, but because the people closest to me couldn't see it, wouldn't see it. They had a version of me in their minds, and no amount of evidence could shake it. I pause, letting the words land. I've learned something from that experience. I've learned that visibility isn't just about being seen by strangers. It's about being seen by the people who matter, by family, by community, by the ones who should know us best. And I've learned that sometimes the truth has to break through before it can build anything. Before we can have honest relationships, honest conversations, honest futures, the lies have to shatter. The illusions have to fall. I look at my family in the front row. My mother is crying openly. My father is gripping the armrests of his chair like he's holding on to something precious. Mark is nodding slowly, a small smile on his face. Elizabeth is beaming. To my family, I say, who are here today for the first time. Thank you. Thank you for finally seeing me. Thank you for doing the work to understand. Thank you for proving that it's never too late to change. I take a breath. And to everyone else, don't wait. Don't wait for a dramatic dinner revelation. Don't wait for a crisis to force the truth. Look at the people around you. Really look at them. And ask yourself if you're seeing who they are or who you've decided they should be. The answer might surprise you. The months that follow are not a fairy tale. There's no neat resolution, no perfect reconciliation, no moment where everything falls into place and the credits roll. Real change is messier than that. Real healing is harder. My parents stumble. They fall back into old patterns, then catch themselves, then apologize, then do better. It's 3 steps forward, 2 steps back, a constant recalibration of long-held assumptions. My mother still sometimes asks if I'm keeping busy with my little projects. But now, when I raise an eyebrow, she catches herself. I mean your work, she corrects. Your important work. Tell me about it. My father still struggles to understand what I do, but he started reading the news about AI regulation, printing out articles and sending them to me with notes like, "Is this what you work on?" And, "This seems important? Is it?" The effort matters more than the accuracy. Mark takes the longest to change. His habits are deeply ingrained, his defenses carefully constructed over decades. He backslides sometimes, falling into olden patterns of resentment and competition, but then he catches himself, calls me to apologize, and tries again. A year after that Thanksgiving, he earns his first promotion, not because of connections or charm or hidden family influence, but because he actually became good at his job, because he put in the work, because he finally stopped comparing himself to me and started focusing on his own growth. I did it, he tells me, voice thick with emotion. Actually did it. On my own. I know. I'm proud of you. It's not as impressive as what you do. Stop. Don't do that. Your success isn't measured against mine. It's measured against who you were before. And by that measure, you've come miles. He's quiet for a moment. Then, thank you, Evie, for believing I could change, for giving me a chance to prove it. Thank you for taking it. Elizabeth becomes my unexpected ally, the bridge between who I was in my family and who I've become in the world. She reads my articles, attends my lectures when they're nearby, asks questions that are sometimes naive but always sincere. I want to understand, she tells me. I want my kids to understand. They should know that their aunt is doing something that matters, something that shapes the future. She starts volunteering with a local STEM education program, inspiring young girls to pursue careers in technology. Because of you, she says, because I saw what you could become when you were allowed to shine. Richard Hale remains a steadfast supporter. We serve together on multiple boards, collaborate on ethics initiatives, share the occasional dinner when our schedules align. He becomes something like a friend, one of the few who knew me before and after, who witnessed the transformation. You're different now, he observes one evening over wine in his Manhattan penthouse. More present, more whole. I feel more whole. There's a weight I carried for decades, the exhaustion of being unseen. It's not gone entirely, but it's lighter. I can set it down sometimes. That's good. You deserve to be light. You deserve to be seen. I'm learning to believe that. Here's what I want you to understand. If you followed this story to its end, the people who should see you most clearly are often the ones who see you least. Family, friends, the communities that should know us best. They build versions of us in their minds, versions that serve their own narratives, their own needs, their own comfort. And those versions can be prisons, trapping us in identities we've long outgrown. Breaking free isn't about revenge. It's not about making people feel bad for what they missed, for the years they spent looking through you instead of at you. It's about truth. It's about clarity. It's about finally being seen for who you are instead of who they decided you should be. My family failed me for decades. They minimized my achievements, celebrated my brother's mediocrity, treated my extraordinary success as barely worth mentioning. And I let them. I shrank myself, dimmed my light, made myself small so that others could feel big. But here's the thing about light. It wants to shine. It finds a way, eventually, to break through even the darkest clouds. And when it does, when truth finally explodes into a room that's been too comfortable with lies, nothing can ever go back to the way it was. Some families don't survive that explosion. Some relationships can't bear the weight of decades of damage suddenly revealed. But mine did. Not perfectly, not easily, but genuinely. My family changed because they were willing to see what they'd been doing wrong. They grew because they were humble enough to learn. That's the real lesson, I think. Not that truth is powerful. Anyone can tell you that. But that truth without love is just destruction. And love without truth is just denial. You need both. You need the courage to shatter the lies and the grace to rebuild from the rubble. It's Thanksgiving again. A full year has passed since that dinner, since Richard walked through the door, and everything changed. I'm standing at the window of my parents' house watching the first snowflakes of the season drift past. The table behind me is set for 7. My parents, Elizabeth and her husband Mark, and me. Richard won't be joining us this year. He's with his wife, as it should be. But he sent a bottle of wine and a card. To the Carter family, may this year's truth be gentler than last year's, and may the love that builds on honesty grow ever stronger. My mother stands beside me at the window. Her hair is grayer than it was a year ago, her face more lined, but there's something softer in her eyes now, something less defensive. I've been thinking about that speech you gave, she says, in Davos, about visibility. What about it? I've been thinking about how long I looked at you without seeing you, how long I let you be invisible, and I've been trying to understand why. Have you figured it out? She's quiet for a moment. Then, I think I was afraid. Of you. Of what you represented. You were so brilliant, so driven, so different from anything I knew. And I didn't know how to be your mother. I didn't know how to guide someone who was so clearly going to outgrow me. So you pretended I wasn't anything special. I pretended you were small enough for me to handle. I know now that was wrong. That it hurt you. That it almost destroyed our relationship. She turns to face me fully. But I want you to know that I'm proud of you. Genuinely, deeply proud. Not just of what you've accomplished, but of who you are, of how you've handled all of this. The truth-telling, the rebuilding, the grace you've shown us, even though we didn't deserve it. Mom, let me finish. I need to say this, and I might not have the courage again. She takes my hands in hers. You are extraordinary, Evelyn. You always have been. And I'm sorry I didn't see it. I'm sorry I made you feel invisible. I'm sorry for all the years I celebrated your brother and ignored you. I can't take any of it back, but I can do better. I am doing better, and I'll keep doing better, for as long as I'm able. The words land somewhere deep, in the places where old wounds still echo. Thank you, I say. That means everything. Not everything, she says, echoing my words from a year ago, but something. Something is enough for now. I smile, and for the first time in longer than I can remember, the smile feels complete. The snow is falling harder now, blanketing the world in white. In an hour, we'll sit down to dinner. Not the fraught, tension-filled meal of last year, but something gentler, something real, something built on honesty instead of denial. Mark will tell us about his new project at work, the one that earned him that promotion. He'll speak with genuine confidence instead of desperate self-promotion, and we'll celebrate his success without diminishing anyone else's. My father will ask me about my upcoming congressional testimony, and he'll actually listen to the answer. He won't understand everything, but he'll try. He'll keep trying. Elizabeth will talk about her volunteer work, about the young girls she's mentoring, about the future she's helping to build. Her children will interrupt constantly, and we'll all laugh, and it will feel like a family. And my mother will look at me across the table, and her eyes will say what her words sometimes struggle to. I see you. Finally. Fully, I see you. That's the thing about visibility. Once you have it, really have it, everything changes. Not because you needed their approval to be who you are. You never needed that. But because being seen, being truly seen, is one of the deepest human needs. And having it met after decades of waiting feels like coming home. I turn from the window as the others start to gather. The table is set, the food is ready, the family is assembled. A year ago, I walked into this house braced for battle. I walked out having won a war I'd been fighting my entire life, not against my family, but against the lies we'd all agreed to believe. Now I'm walking into something new, something honest, something that feels, for the first time, like it might actually be love. Evie, my mother calls. Come sit down, we're about to start. I take one last look at the snow falling outside the window, at the world wrapped in white silence. Then I turn, and I walk toward my family, and I take my place at the table, not invisible, not diminished, not shrinking myself for anyone's comfort, just me. Dr. Evelyn Carter, sister, daughter, aunt, board member, policy advisor, MacArthur Fellow, a woman who finally, after all these years, is seen. And it's enough. It's finally enough. If you've ever been the quiet one in a loud family, I want you to know your silence is not smallness. Your invisibility is not insignificance. The people who fail to see you are not the measure of your worth. You are allowed to shine. You are allowed to succeed. You are allowed to take up space in a world that's tried to convince you that you shouldn't. And if the people who should love you most can't see who you are, if they refuse to look, refuse to learn, refuse to change, then that's their loss, not yours. But if they can change, if they're willing to shatter their own comfortable lies and see the truth, then maybe, just maybe, something beautiful can grow from the rubble. Truth doesn't need approval. Excellence doesn't need applause. Success doesn't need validation from people who weren't paying attention. But love? Love is built on seeing, really seeing, and being seen in return. That's the lesson I learned on a Thanksgiving day when everything changed. May you learn it too.